Let's dive deep. Today we're exploring something really fundamental to navigating, well, pretty much any part of life. Transferable skills.
Yeah, those incredible abilities you pick up and carry with you. You use them everywhere, sometimes without even realizing it.
Across different jobs, different roles, maybe even completely different worlds.
Exactly. They're the bedrock of adaptability.
Yeah.
Skills that aren't, tied down to just one specific task or industry. They're universally valuable.
But, and this is the interesting part, we're taking a really unconventional route to understand them today. Forget the usual resume advice for a second.
We're actually cracking open excerpts from a source you probably wouldn't expect. It's an autobiography called Transferable Skills, Tales of a Mafioso Nerd.
Yes, you heard that right. A mafioso nerd.
And we're pairing that with, more standard sources that define these skills and offer frameworks. But this book gives this incredibly stark, real-world look at how powerful these skills can be.
Yeah, it shows their origins and how they're applied in places you definitely wouldn't look for career lessons usually.
So our mission, really, in this deep dive, is to unpack the sometimes surprising ways these skills show up. Where they come from often, it seems, from really challenging or unexpected places.
And how they can be applied in vastly different areas, legitimate ones and, well, less legitimate ones.
And crucially, how this kind of extreme example can actually be a powerful lens for you, listening right now, to maybe identify and understand your own transferable skills.
It's about seeing these universal human capabilities kind of highlighted by this extraordinary, sometimes frankly disturbing life story.
Right. We'll be drawing from the autobiography and these other analyses to guide you through this whole exploration of skill, where it comes from, and maybe where it could take you.
Okay, so quick line first. What exactly are transferable skills? One source puts it pretty simply, actually.
Yeah, they're basically interpersonal and practical abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Things that work across lots of different workplaces, roles, industries, sometimes called portable skills.
Portable skills. I like that.
Yeah,
Because you really do take them with you.
exactly. They're different from, say, knowing how to use one specific piece of software that's only used in like one niche field.
Right.
Transferable skills are the underlying stuff. Problem solving, communication, navigating complex situations. They make you adaptable.
Which employers love, right? Shows flexibility.
Totally. A source points out they help you build your career path, make you a more well-rounded contributor. They give you that flexibility if you want to switch things up.
Yeah, if you change careers, your technical knowledge might be out of date, but these skills show you can learn, you can adapt, you can succeed in that new place.
Which brings us right back to the heart of this unique deep dive. We're using these excerpts from Transferable Skills, Tales of a Mafioso Nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at these concepts not just in theory, but through the lived experience of this person, Erik Grob.
And importantly, we should probably state up front, we're analyzing the skills the source material talks about. We're not, endorsing any illegal activities described.
Absolutely not. We're just reporting on the content, what the sources present.
So the sources describe Erik Grob as, well, highly intelligent, courageous too.
Yeah, and what jumps out immediately is how his core transferable skills, according to the book, weren't really learned in a classroom or a normal job.
Right. They were forged. That's the word they use. Forged from his childhood experiences, his inherent abilities.
And that's a key insight, I think. Skills developed in really challenging, non-traditional, maybe even adverse environments can be incredibly potent.
His story really shows how these deeply ingrained capabilities can be applied across domains that seem, worlds apart.
It's like seeing this raw, powerful energy just channeled in different directions. The sources actually called them dual-use skills.
Dual use. Huh.
Showing how they showed up in the world Erik navigated, but also how that same underlying ability could be super valuable in a, legitimate setting.
Okay, so let's dig into the first one. It feels like it comes right out of survival instincts based on his story. Observational acuity and risk assessment.
Yeah, which the sources also kind of label as hypervigilance and discernment.
Hypervigilance, that sounds intense. Where did that come from, according to the book?
Well, the source is rooted in trauma, actually. Yeah. Erik's need to survive his mother's unpredictable emotional abuse and neglect.
Wow.
It meant he developed this extreme hypervigilance, always needing to read the signs, anticipate shifts, basically just to avoid being a target.
So a coping mechanism.
A powerful one.
Yeah.
And apparently it was also honed by time spent in the Holocaust survivor community, where reading unspoken cues was also, critical.
Survival skills turning into, well, almost business skills. It's fascinating. And discernment. What's that about?
That's more about the ability to identify the really critical problems, the key insights. One source notes that even a figure like Mikey Rotelli, a mob figure, recognized Erik had this quality.
Okay, so how did this play out in the criminal world described in the book? The illicit application.
Well, in that context, hypervigilance meant things like scanning environments constantly for threats, reading unspoken cues and really dangerous interactions, understanding power dynamics instantly.
Right.
And discernment was crucial for spotting the core weakness in an operation, like in one instance, the corruption of the enforcers. That allowed him to gather proof. The sources specifically mention him reading cues and anticipating storms.
Okay, so now the transferability, that ability to read the signs, anticipate shifts, see what others miss. How does that look in a legitimate context?
Well, it translates directly, doesn't it, to things like strategic intelligence, market analysis in business.
Mm-hmm. Identifying subtle signals, seeing trends or threats before they're obvious.
Exactly. And hypervigilance, when it's channeled constructively, becomes a vital part of risk management, whether that's finance, cybersecurity, operations.
Mm.
You're proactively spotting vulnerabilities, anticipating issues.
And reading the room, picking up unspoken cues. I mean, that's essential in tricky negotiations or managing client relationships, right?
Absolutely. And discernment, identifying those critical problems.
Mm-hmm.
That's what lets leaders get to the root cause of issues, not just, patching things up.
Yeah, treating symptoms.
Right. The sources argue these are really critical strategic competencies. They even suggest organizations should actively look for people with this kind of acuity.
And cultivate a culture that values those nuanced insights, that proactive risk spotting, instead of just reacting when things go wrong.
Yeah, makes you wonder, are you rewarding the person who spotted the iceberg way off or just the crew frantically bailing water afterwards?
That is a powerful reframe. Okay, moving on. Let's look at influence and system manipulation. And the sources also frame this as social engineering and control.
Yeah, this one's interesting. The origin seems tied to Erik's early desire for control, stemming from that unpredictable childhood. He apparently learned to manipulate situations, even using tears sometimes. And this need for control, combined with an early fascination with phones, telecom, it led him to phone freaking.
Phone freaking, basically finding ways around the phone system, right? Driven by wanting to manipulate systems and see behind the curtain.
Exactly. And social engineering, as the sources define it, is specifically using deception to manipulate people for info or access.
Got it.
So, in the illicit world, the phone freaking involved bypassing billing systems. Erik actually wrote code, apparently refining it to behave more like humans to avoid getting caught. That shows some pretty advanced technical manipulation.
Wow.
He and his friend William, who's also described as brilliant, they mastered social engineering to get access to mainframes, get information.
The sources detail some specific examples.
Yeah, manipulating enforcers for hush money, even meticulously planning and using social engineering for this calculated revenge plot. He adopted a whole ruthless kingpin persona through a prop bet just to terrify someone into quitting their operation.
Okay, the intensity there is something else. But again, how do these abilities, this understanding of systems and influence, translate legitimately?
Well, the core understanding of human psychology, persuasive communication,
Yeah.
that's the foundation of advanced sales and negotiation, isn't it?
True. Understanding needs, guiding conversations.
Right. And in cybersecurity, that skill set is absolutely crucial for red teaming. Simulating attacks, including phishing or manipulation, to find those human weak spots and strengthen defenses.
I can see that. And change management too, maybe. Influencing narratives, getting buy-in for new initiatives, overcoming resistance.
Exactly. And that desire to manipulate systems and see behind the curtain, instead of using it illicitly, you can channel that into legitimate fields like systems optimization, improving user experience design, or just deeply understanding how complex tech systems actually work.
So the skill itself isn't the problem, it's the intent.
Precisely. The sources suggest that while these skills can be misused, influence is actually essential in ethical leadership. They recommend investing in training for ethical influence, negotiation, communication, all guided by strong governance to make sure these powerful abilities are used constructively.
Using the principles of understanding behavior, but without the deception, for things like employee engagement or customer acquisition.
Exactly. Makes a lot of sense when you frame it that way.
Okay, what's the next skill on the list?
Skill number 3 is adaptability and persona management. The sources talk about this as duality, facades, and identity management.
Adaptability. Where does that kind of skill come from, according to the story?
Again, the roots seem to be in that childhood duality. navigating an abusive home alongside this solemn, demanding survivor community environment.
Two completely different worlds.
Right. So he learned coping mechanisms like making himself small and quiet, suppressing emotions, and this developed into a conscious ability to adopt different personas. Well, the sources describe him deliberately cultivating a preppy, rich kid look as a disguise to hide in plain sight. Apparently, another character involved found this brilliant for added protection.
So conscious strategy.
Yeah. Anonymity and obfuscation in his illicit work even became, the source says, a perverse sense of expertise. He developed a placid composure, could craft smiles when needed.
So in the illicit world, it was literally about physical and behavioral disguise.
Yes, absolutely. Becoming a master of disguise, changing wardrobes, operating like a ghost, moving money around the city, explicitly crafting a persona for specific people, like presenting himself as a computer consultant with transferable skills into the world of organized crime for Mikey Rotelli.
Wow.
And when dealing with dangerous people, maintaining cool detachment, even using appearance of Rolex, suits to project an image while accepting bribes.
And that revenge plot again.
Crucially, yes. Consciously putting on a game face, playing that ruthless kingpin role to perfection. It was a performance.
Okay, so take that ability, that conscious shifting of presentation. What does that look like in the legitimate world? Because that sounds incredibly valuable.
It really is. It's right at the heart of cross-cultural communication, isn't it? Adapting your demeanor, your style, even your appearance to interact effectively in different contexts.
Absolutely. And executive presence, too. Consciously adjusting your persona to inspire a team, build trust with clients, calm investors.
It's not about being fake, maybe, but about strategic presentation.
Right.
It's relevant in brand management, client relationships, adapting your approach for different personalities, high-stakes negotiation, where controlling your emotional expression and adjusting your approach is absolutely key.
The sources give it a name.
Yeah, they know this ability is often called cultural intelligence. And the strategic insight here is that this strategic adaptability is really a form of emotional intelligence and flexibility.
So organizations should recognize it, value it.
Exactly. Encourage adaptive communication, maybe mentor employees on things like executive presence. It's particularly vital, the sources suggest, in global or really complex matrix organizations.
Makes sense. Okay, skill 4, intellectual prowess and rapid learning. Or brilliance and technical acumen.
Yeah, this one comes up again and again in the sources. Erik is explicitly called a genius, unparalleled brilliance.
And his friend William, too.
William also described as a genius, photographic memory. Erik had notable academic achievements. Professors recognized his brilliance.
And he learned fast. Picked up new things quickly.
Incredibly fast. New technologies, whole industries. He apparently taught himself complex data analysis software, SPSS, describing it like wrestling raw data into shimmering nuggets.
Wow. And William writing complex code at 14.
Yeah, assembler code.
Yeah.
Erik's quick wit and irreverence were noted, even valued by one boss. And Mikey Rotelli recognized his intelligence and that discernment we talked about earlier.
So in the illicit sphere, how did that brilliance play out?
Well, William's low-level coding skills let them exploit systems. Erik's war dialer program that showed sophisticated technical problem solving, constantly refining it to avoid detection.
Right.
Their ability to just absorb new technologies and industries with astonishing speed was apparently key to reviving their criminal activities, developing this deep understanding of the underbelly of the digital world.
So transferring that level of intellectual horsepower and rapid learning, legitimate applications must be huge.
Oh, absolutely fundamental. R&D, innovation, quickly mastering complex new fields. It's core to data science, analytics, turning raw numbers into high-level insights, predictive models.
Software development, engineering.
Requires that deep understanding of architecture, strategic planning too, quickly grasping complex systems, identifying patterns. And honestly, in today's world, continuous self-directed learning is arguably the most valuable transferable skill you can have. Full stop.
So the strategic insight here is look beyond the usual qualifications.
Yeah. Prioritize intellectual curiosity, demonstrated ability for rapid self-directed learning. Cultivating a culture that supports continuous learning, experimentation, that's really an investment in future adaptability, future-proofing your talent.
Absolutely. Okay, finally, skill 5. Courage and self-advocacy, sometimes called bravery and resilience.
Right. Erik's bravery apparently showed up early, standing up to a school bully, knowing a fight was coming.
And he kept phone freaking even after realizing it was criminal, fearing getting caught.
Yeah. And resilience, basically the ability to adjust to stress and adversity.
So in the illicit world, specific examples.
He made what the sources call a bold, calculated decision to lie to dangerous mob connections to get out of the fricking game.
That takes guts.
Definitely. He accepted anonymous summonses to meet dangerous figures despite being scared. He persisted in dangerous environments, moving money, witnessing brutality, all while holding down a legitimate job as cover.
He sought out Mikey Rotelli proactively.
Yes, for protection and advancement, consciously accepting the huge risks involved. He rode with steroid raging, coked-up enforcers, and that this is incredible, demonstrated what the sources call profound courage by directly presenting irrefutable evidence of their corruption to Mikey Rotelli himself.
Wow, and then asking for territory?
Boldly approaching Mikey, asking for a dangerous territory left vacant, framing it as an opportunity. Willing to step into a void others were terrified of. His friends described him as a straight shooter, direct communicator, which also takes courage in those circles.
Okay, that level of bravery and resilience, how does that translate powerfully to legitimate contexts?
Well, you see it in entrepreneurship, taking calculated risks, challenging the status quo.
Right.
It's essential for ethical leadership. And in extreme cases, whistleblowing having the courage to confront corruption or wrongdoing.
High-stakes negotiation too, right. Confident self-advocacy, asking for what you want under pressure.
Exactly. Crisis leadership composure, decisive action when everything's falling apart, and just fostering employee voice, creating a culture where people feel safe to speak up, challenge assumptions that relies on valuing this kind of courage.
So the strategic insight is cultivate that courage.
Yeah, cultivate a culture that encourages calculated risk-taking, direct feedback, courage, not just, blind conformity. Create safe ways for those straight shooters to speak up. Recognize that stepping into discomfort is often where growth happens. People who navigate high-pressure situations have this really valuable resilience and bravery.
Okay, so beyond these specific skills, these dual-use abilities, Erik Grob's journey, as presented in the sources, seems to offer some broader, cross-cutting insights too.
Definitely. One major theme is just the duality of skills itself. How powerful skills can be applied to illicit ends if they're decoupled from ethics.
Like the same awareness that spots market opportunities could be used for fraud.
Exactly. It really starkly highlights the critical need for a strong ethical framework, a strong organizational culture to make sure abilities are channeled constructively.
Another insight seems to be about unconventional talent pools.
Yeah. Erik and William, they learned outside the box, honed skills in these shadowy worlds were often overlooked by traditional institutions.
It makes you ask, doesn't it? Are we missing out on exceptional talent? Brilliant problem solvers, resilient navigators, masters of influence just because they don't have the usual credentials or background?
It suggests maybe diversifying talent acquisition, valuing demonstrated problem-solving ability over just formal qualifications.
The impact of environment and mentorship also seems huge in this story.
Absolutely. Erik's early coping mechanisms came from trauma. Later, figures like Dixon and Rotelli honed his skills within that criminal ecosystem.
But there were positive influences too. His father, another positive father figure.
Right. The sources highlight how environment, mentorship, ethical leadership, or the lack thereof, are absolutely crucial in shaping how skills get applied, for good or for ill.
And finally, there's this idea about resilience built on adversity.
Yeah. Erik's resilience let him survive, but the sources note it was often built on things like emotional denial and self-minimization, which led to internal conflict.
So adversity builds skills, but there's a cost.
Exactly. Leaders should maybe consider those underlying emotional costs. Ensure support systems are there for well-being alongside demanding performance. Resilience is valuable, incredibly so, but it needs to be nurtured and supported, not just, expected or extracted.
These insights, drawn from such an extreme, unique life, really offer a powerful lens on universal aspects of human capability and adaptation, don't they?
They really do.
And that brings us, naturally, to you, the listener. Erik's story, as intense and unique as it is, can actually serve as a powerful mirror for your own self-reflection.
Yeah. Every challenge you've faced, every gift you possess, every different environment you've navigated, they've all shaped your capacities in ways you might not even fully appreciate yet.
The sources suggest a kind of framework, inspired by Erik's journey, for unearthing your own transferable skills, sort of like digging into your own past.
Right. Phase 1 is about excavating your past worlds. Think about the distinct environments you've been in: childhood home, schools, jobs, clubs, maybe difficult relationships.
Pinpoint the significant challenges, difficulties, maybe even traumas you faced in each of those worlds.
Then try to articulate how you instinctively responded. What were your coping mechanisms? Your default behaviors, your emotional responses, your cognitive ones.
Okay, then phase two, identifying innate abilities and their evolution.
Yeah. What were your natural talents or passions, your inherent brilliance from a young age? And then trace how those early coping mechanisms or innate talents started to evolve into more developed skills.
Like Eric's need for control plus tech fascination becoming social engineering, how did your experiences cultivate your specific abilities?
And phase three, articulating transferability and crafting your persona.
Giving your developed skills concise professional labels. The sources list examples like strategic acuity, crisis navigation, systems manipulation. What else?
Identity management, calculated risk assessment, data analysis, rapid learning and mastery, unwavering conviction, things like that.
And consider your own morphing ability. How have you adapted your persona, your communication, your appearance for different situations? That's strategic adaptability.
And finally, connect these hard-won skills to potential future applications. Where could your unique blend of abilities take you next? Maybe in ways you haven't even imagined yet, just like Erik found new playgrounds for his extraordinary skill set.
So let's wrap this up. Transferable skills. They're incredibly potent forces, aren't they? Adaptable to countless situations.
And often forged, it seems, in the most unexpected circumstances, even deep adversity. Erik Grob's journey, as extreme and complex as it is, vividly illustrates that duality, that power of adaptation.
Understanding these skills, both in others and, maybe more importantly, in yourself, is truly fundamental, navigating your career, your life path.
Recognizing and really valuing how your unique experiences have shaped your capabilities. That's incredibly empowering, I think.
So here's a final thought for you to maybe ponder, building on everything we've explored today. How might the most challenging, maybe uncomfortable moments and environments in your life, how might they have inadvertently shaped some of your most powerful and transferable abilities?
Yeah, take some time. Maybe use that framework we discussed. Your own unique story holds the key to understanding your most valuable skills. It's worth digging into.
Keep digging, keep reflecting, and keep exploring.
Chapter 1. 40 weekends a year. The world I lived in as a child wasn't one world, but two, starkly divided by the Hudson River and the days of the week. 5 days were spent in a house in Chatham, New Jersey, where I will never forget the unspoken tension, dominated by the unpredictable storms of my mother's emotional abuse. Her neglect, words, her moods could shift in an instant, leaving me walking on eggshells, constantly bracing for the next outburst or cutting remark. It wasn't physical violence, but a relentless chipping away at my sense of self, a constant criticism and emotional manipulation that made me question my worth and reality. The house felt small, suffocating, filled with a low hum of anxiety that was always present. I couldn't do anything right. Everything I said was criticized by my mother. My father was a loving presence, a harbor of calm in the storm, a gentle yet powerful force born in 1926 and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Offered quiet support and understanding. I adored him. His steady nature, a stark contrast to my mother's volatility, but even his warmth couldn't fully shield me from the fear my mother instilled. I learned early to read the signs, to anticipate the shifts in her tone, the tightening of her jaw, the specific phrases that signaled an impending storm. I learned to make myself small and quiet, to disappear as much as possible, to avoid becoming a target for her unpredictable anger or biting sarcasm. Survival meant minimizing my presence, minimizing my needs. But then came Friday afternoons. Their pinochle games, waged not for mere monetary gain, but for humble hazelnuts, erupted into boisterous, multilingual clashes. A cacophony of Yiddish, German, English, and the occasional Hebrew phrase punctuated their intense matches. It was a scene etched vividly in my memory, a cherished tableau of vibrant energy and familial camaraderie. These men, invariably clad in somber suits, projected an aura of quiet dignity. My grandfather, similarly, was a constant presence in his fedora, even while lounging in his sleeveless undershirt at the card table. That hat, I felt, was a symbol, a silent assertion of his patriarchal authority, a declaration that even in casual attire, he remained the man of the house.